Hello and welcome to episode 436 of Geektown Radio. I'm your host Dave and I'm back this week with Darryl. How are you doing?
It's great to be back. I'm doing okay.
Good. So you always bring some interesting stuff along. So what have you been watching?
I like to think so. When I got the call, I had that little moment of panic. It's like, I haven't watched anything in ages. So, being the enterprising person I did, I went straight to Amazon Prime, had a quick look, and something appealed to me, and that was Killer Heat. I had heard about it a few days ago, obviously when it sort of first came out, and it's this new film, an Amazon original, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Shailene Woodley, and Richard Madden.
Cool.
Which, you know, that's a pretty impressive trio to start with.
Yeah, it's a decent cast.
Add on to that, Babu Cisse, who I recognize because he was in a martial arts thing that I loved from a few years back.
He was in Into the Badlands.
That's the one.
And Wolf. There was a Sky series he did, and he was in Shard Lake quite recently for Disney Plus as well. So he's been in lots of stuff there.
Yeah, so I thought, let's give this a watch. So, it's set on a Greek island, and it follows Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, whose name is Nick Bally. He is a Greek American from New York, so you eventually find out. And he's currently working in Greece as a private detective.
Right.
Handling your divorce stuff and that sort of thing. Anyway, we learn at the beginning of the film, he is retained by Shailene's character to investigate the death of her husband, who fell during a climbing accident and died. He is one of twin brothers who are set to inherit this massive shipping company, which effectively makes him the biggest thing on the island, almost like a royal family as such. And it's basically, we just watch him get involved in this and try to find out what's going on. And it's based on a short story by Joe Nesbo. And Joe Nesbo is a very popular Scandi noir writer.
Right. Okay.
With a load of things that have already been adapted for film, both in Europe and in the US and here as well.
Right.
So, you know, that sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, something's lost in execution. It goes for this very much old style, hard-boiled thing. It's got the voiceover. It's got your very troubled lead detective. And it just takes itself far too seriously.
Okay.
And it just doesn't work. It's just very boring. There's a lot of issues with the pace.
Right.
It takes a while to get in there. And it just feels like a paint by numbers. It's like our detective has a drinking problem, has this past that we keep getting sucked into flashbacks about, which we don't care. It's like, we want to find out who did this and if there is a murder to be thing. And unfortunately, you have that. You have, you know, the successful femme fatale, how much does she know? And it really is just a weak offering. There's nothing here that would set it out from the pack. Nothing that you wouldn't have listened to on the radio back in the 40s.
Right.
It's got an amazing cast, and it's not like it's even average. It is actually bad.
Oh, dear.
I think you managed to get 0 on like Rotten Tomatoes, which that's insane.
Wow. Yeah.
Probably still hasn't got 0 now. It's probably like sorted itself out like on 50, but
I think it's on 17% according to this, which is
1.7.
Yes, 1.7. She's not great.
Then they're not overdoing it.
Yeah.
It is just really, really lazy. And it's a shame because I watch a few of the Prime Video ones, and usually they offer more than this did. Yeah. The one thing that keeps coming back to when I was just watching it, and I had to like pause and just go off and do something else because it was just couldn't hold my attention. It was just so boring. Yeah. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a death in the middle of it, which, you know, I'm not going to spoil, but it's a pretty major thing. And you think, okay, someone died, so there should be like something that happens as a result of that. Nothing. It's like it never happened. And it's never examined or even referenced again. And you just think, oh, no. Yeah. I don't know if it was maybe they were rushed or something, or they had only so much shooting time or something, but there's definitely a lot lacking here. Yeah, just the reviews of it from other people seem to be echoing quite a lot of that sort of stuff. There are a few positive reviews, but most of them are, it's very generic.
it's uneventful, fairly toothless, kind of forgettable.
Yeah.
So, yes, if you want to avoid Killer Heat, it's on Amazon Prime Video right now. So.
Yes, exactly. Avoid it. So, moving on to something a bit more refreshing. I watched Elsbeth. Now,
yes.
I had seen the pilot quite a while ago.
I'm familiar with Elsbeth, but have not watched any of the connected, like The Good Wife or The Good Fight or any of the other shows that are connected with it. So I haven't bothered to look at this. But yes, I am aware it is out there.
I was in exactly the same sort of case as you. I hadn't seen them. I'd obviously known about it. I actually asked a friend to tell me a little bit about what this character is, because Elsbeth is a character who sort of recurs there. And she is a attorney. She is based in Chicago, and she's very quirky. I think that's the best intro. The premise of Elsbeth is that we find that she has taken a new job in New York after the New York Police Department lose a big lawsuit. She's brought in to basically vet their cases and their procedures just to make sure that they are, keeping it on the up and up.
Yeah.
Which obviously goes on like a lead balloon when she comes in to the station. And that's what we sort of follow. And basically, it's a modern Columbo. Very much hits on all those sorts of things that Columbo does, in that you see the crime, so you know who does it. And then we introduce our detective, which in this case just happens to be a lawyer. And somehow she always almost immediately zooms in on who the guilty person is, even if no one else does. Then just goes on to annoy them for 40 minutes of an hour-long show, all the while working to find out what really happened. And it's fun. The character of Elsbeth is great. Yeah, she is very quirky. She just, in the first episode, she's very much like in tourist mode all the way through. So she's like running around with like a Statue of Liberty hat type of thing.
Yes, I've seen the screenshot of that.
Yeah, that she forgets she's wearing, and she's constantly asking about things to do in New York. But that is just how she is. She is that very sort of quirky, very happy person, very talkative and always ready to engage and always asking questions, which for Columbo fans knows that's what he does. Is that constant asking those seemingly silly questions and again, who was zinger in there that really unlocks part of the mystery. I was lucky enough to go with the press coverage for Elsbeth when it had its North American launch, which included getting interviews with most of the major cast, which you can go and catch on Hollywood North News. If you sort of type in Elsbeth, you should be able to find. So the big sells on Elsbeth is that it has a lot of very high-profile guest stars that go through. So the first season actually brings in one of Carrie Preston's ex-cast members from her time on True Blood, Stephen Moyer.
Oh, yes.
He appears in that first one. We also get other stars pop up. It's interesting because obviously it's a different sort of style of show that you know who does the killing. So you know it's going to be the high-profile star. It's very fun. And it was especially fun to watch those two clash, obviously, because they've obviously worked together quite a lot in the past.
Yeah.
Other guest stars include Jane Krakowski from Annie McBeal and countless other shows as well. Gina Gershon.
Oh, yeah. Blair Underwood.
Yeah, Blair Underwood is the other one that sort of really popped into my head.
Keegan-Michael Key is in there as well.
Yeah, basically, there is that, which is, murder of the week. But there is also another very special reason that Elsbeth is there, which is a secret to the people around her. And so we're also following that and seeing how she's going to do in terms of finding out what's happening there. So, yeah, it's played to keep you involved. And she sort of forms this friendship with a young uniformed officer who can just about deal with her. But I think she's too much for everyone else, like the detective that she often has to deal with. But the officer, I think they just get along.
Yeah.
So it's fun to see that. It's already been renewed. I think CBS are pushing it pretty big, so I think they're going to stay behind it for a while yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's worth a watch. And if you do like that sort of Columbo style, we know who the killer is and this works. And it also, just like Columbo, it always has killers who are the most vain people who are so impressed by their own stuff that they think they can never be captured, as opposed to, your nervous murderer. These ones always think no one could possibly figure things out.
Yes.
It makes things much more fun.
I'm Actually, might go and take a look at that if you don't need to know that much of the sort of background of the Good Wife.
Never watched any episodes of Good Wife. You don't need to, because she explains who she is and how she is. It's just about her as a person. It doesn't require any knowledge even on what she went through back in that.
Right, okay. Because I quite like those sort of inverted, they're described as inverted detective stories. Poker Face was the other example of one quite recently, which very much was a sort of Columbo type thing as well. I mean, Columbo's the most well-known of that sort of inverted detective story, but I hadn't realised that's what it was. And if you don't really need to know the background of the Good Wife or the Good Fight for it, I might actually take a look at that. That sounds like it could be quite fun. That's on Sky Witness, isn't it now?
It is indeed. So, next on the agenda is a little horror B-movie. You know I love my B-movies. This one is by the name of Alien Shark.
Excellent.
Again, you know how much I love when films tell you what they're about in the titles.
Yes, absolutely.
We sort of open on this seaside town and we see two people pick up a strange green rock. The green rock immediately sort of mind controls one of them and they walk into the ocean, only to disappear in a splash.
Right.
And that's our opening. Moving into the actual story, we see a bunch of friends, including a young female Marine who's taken some time off from her paratrooper training, basically just join her friends for a party at the beach.
Right.
She's our sort of lead, and that's Brittany Altenbach. There's a lot more here than I assumed there would be, because we have this party where for some reason the girl who's organized the party invites her ex and his friend, or the girls thought it was going to be a girls' night or a girls' weekend. We also have a man who believes he was abducted by aliens and it believes he's being spoken to by someone who's trying to help him save the world. And then we also have a alien spaceship just chilling out in orbit.
Excellent.
we sometimes get shots of. And obviously these three things come together. And at some point, don't probably explain, but at some point, the weird green meteorite gets into a shark, an absolutely horrifically special effected in shark. I mean, honestly, it has to be seen to be believed how bad it is. Which is weird because like the rest of the film, and when you look at a film, even say the colors and the thing, you can see this one is shot well, but yeah, there's just like, I don't know, maybe they spent all their monies and cameras, had nothing left for the special effects guys. Very, very strange. But it's a fun little story. Basically, the green stuff just keeps spreading, turning more and more of the people living at the beach into these weird, not zombies, but just mind-controlled people.
Yes.
Who walk into the ocean to get eaten because this thing has to feed. And it all leads to the end to a big fight for the world, as we know.
Excellent.
It's fun. It follows the plot. It gets where it's going pretty quick. It doesn't mess around. And yeah, it's just good and silly. So yeah, I quite liked it. Yeah,
it's one of those things that, like you say, you kind of know what you're getting when you get into it. And it's funny, I'm just looking on the IMDb page for it, and there's a more like this section. There's a whole stream of these things.
They're endless crazy shark films. Yeah.
There's a Sharkula. There is a Ouija Shark, which apparently had a sequel called Ouija Shark 2, imaginatively. The Sharkenstein. And just to throw in the slightly off-the-wall one, Crocodile.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a sort of takeoff.
Okay, bear thing.
Okay, bear. Yeah. Just great. I do wonder how these things get made sometimes, given, how they're all played.
Yeah, just quickly.
Yeah, quickly and on a very small budget, I imagine. But it's funny. This stuff is out there. And, when they're all complaining about how badly the industry is doing at the moment and how things aren't getting made. And then a movie like Alien Shark comes out.
It is absolutely wild.
Excellent.
Oh, apparently it's filmed in Alabama.
There you go. Available on Prime Video if you want to go check that out.
Okay, moving on. The next thing is do a quick preview, not a review, just a quick preview about Matlock.
Yes.
Just because I definitely put myself out there talking a lot of stuff about this before they sent me a screener. Maybe they heard, I don't know. But yeah, so anyway, Matlock is set to premiere in November on Sky Witness, and it stars Kathy Bates, Sky P. Marshall, David Del Rio, also Jason Ritter, and Beau Bridges.
Yes.
Some of you might also reckon Leia Lewis from Nancy Drew.
Ah, okay.
On the half of it, if you happen to watch her Netflix film. So it follows Madeline Matlock as she rejoins the workforce at the prestigious law firm where she uses her wily tactics to win cases and expose wrongdoing. I had a lot to say about this, so I've got to hold my hand up there. I'm not a big fan of people using names to get eyeballs in front of a show.
Yes.
And they're not doing anything about that show.
Yes.
Now, this Matlock does something incredibly different. And so far, from what I've seen, because I've got access to a few screeners, very, very well done. Someone was cooking with gas when they pitched this in some executive meeting somewhere. That's about as much as I can say. Just that I would definitely recommend it. It's just very interesting. I really like what they've done there. And that's not something we say a lot when we're watching shows. I've not seen anything like this before.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one because I've seen the trailer and stuff for it. I haven't actually seen the show yet. And it was one of those things where they sort of, it's a remake of Matlock starring Kathy Bates, except it's got this wonderfully kind of weird thing, which they mentioned in the trailer, in that she's called Madeline Matty Matlock. And when she's in the meeting, she goes, Matlock, like that old TV show. So the TV show existed in the world of the which is a kind of interesting setup for it.
Yeah, it's at that point when, what's going on here? And then it gets even more interesting after that. I just thought very so just because I was looking at it and I was wondering when it was coming to the UK, and I saw it's coming pretty much next month. So yeah, I would definitely say if you like a procedural, if you like legal, give it a go. At least watch the pilot. If you could just watch pilot and then you can decide for yourself. But I think you'll probably be all in after the pilot, to be honest.
Yeah, it's one that sort of piqued my interest more because of the fact that it was Kathy Bates that had decided to take the lead on it. And you kind of think that's an interesting one for an actress like her to go and agree to do a network show like that. And so I was kind of intrigued.
Last thing.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know how truthful that is, but she definitely didn't say anything that she's because this might be the last thing she does.
Yeah, well, certainly it might be the last regular thing she does because she is 76, and actors could go on for as long as they want to, really. But yes, as a sort of regular network show, I imagine this is probably going to be one of the last sort of regular gigs that she does. But yeah,
right. So for my last thing is I'm going to talk a bit about The Ark. So now TV on Sky Sci-Fi. It's an interesting show. It's a space opera.
Yeah.
And as you might have grabbed by the name, it's about a large ship filled with people leaving Earth just because, funny enough, something's happened to Earth and it's no longer livable. I don't know how that happened because I don't find right now. And it's created by Dean Devlin.
Yes.
Whose name you should know, if you recognize. So we sort of open with the ship getting hit by space debris because the idea is that everybody's in suspended animation or whatever the sci-fi thing they want to call it.
Yeah.
Everyone's asleep, basically until they reach their new planet. But obviously that gets thrown up in the air when it gets hit by space debris. And so we lose the majority of the officer corps. This, unfortunately, their pod hangar gets hit, leaving most of the sort of lower level officers and all the other people who are going to a new world. And it's basically just a series about them struggling to survive and trying to figure out what to do next, because obviously they're like decades and decades away from their destination with a ship which they don't know is even going to make it for the next few weeks. And also because they were meant to be asleep, there isn't any food. There was nowhere near enough food to get them to where they're going. And so that is something that hangs over them all the way through this first season. It's a simple show, but it's just about following all these people who are all very flawed and just them dealing with things going back and forth. It's filmed entirely in Belgrade in a purpose-built place. I know it's on the Electric Now network in the US, which is Dean Devlin's studio. Yeah, it's like a fast channel. It's
okay.
And supported service.
Yeah, it's on Sci-Fi in the US as well, and it's on Sky Sci-Fi over here. I watched the first season of this. The second season is due out very, very soon. I know it's cheap. There isn't a huge budget for it, obviously, but
I think it's cheap, but the money is well spent.
Yeah, and I think
we've got nice spacesuits. There's a fair amount of spacewalks which look pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it does the job well. I mean, no, it's not something like The Expanse. It's not of that level, but it's perfectly enjoyable. The characters are fun. It's got a good sort of twisty-turny story throughout the first season. As a pure, straight-up sci-fi thing, I think it does exactly what it's supposed to. And as you say, it's created by Dean Devlin, who worked on things like The Librarians and Leverage and Almost Paradise and a whole bunch of other stuff. He was responsible for writing the Stargate movie as well. And the person who's showrunner on this is Jonathan Glasner, who was one of the creators of Stargate SG-1 as well. So there are sort of those people involved in it. So it's got quite a good pedigree of people involved behind the scenes. But yeah, I really quite enjoyed the first season of this, and I'm really interested to see what they do with the second season. It is straight up Sci-Fi Channel sci-fi, and it does exactly what it's supposed to. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing the second season of it and see what they do with it. Thoroughly enjoyable, I thought.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. And if you do find yourself watching sort of now, you can check on YouTube, and they have a companion show, which is After the Arc, which has interviews with everyone, does a good sort of job of moving everything along. So we'll talk to the actors who sort of were up front and center of the episode that it came before, and also learn about filming and the fact they're all away in Belgrade to do the filming and stuff. Yes, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out. The second season starts later this week, so we'll get to that later on during the premiere dates for the week. But good stuff.
Yeah.
For me, I'm still playing around with Satisfactory, which is 1.0 has been released. I'm on 745 hours so far. I mean, not since 1.0 release. That's over the entire course of me playing the game. As I mentioned last week, I've just got to the point where you're sort of messing around with nuclear power in that, and I still haven't quite got to setting up the nuclear power. I got completely distracted doing other things and setting up a new base and all that sort of stuff. So still thoroughly enjoying that. Go and pick up Satisfactory. You will lose hours of your life to that game. It's fantastic. In terms of TV, still watching Through Penguin. Really enjoyed that. Thought Agatha is been really strong. Still really enjoying that. In terms of new shows, though, this week, SEAL Team returned for its 7th and final season. Interesting starting point for this, because at the end of season 6, they pretty much shut down the whole of Bravo team, or certainly that seemed to be the way it was going. So when we come back, they are dealing with the consequences of that, and they're basically all being shoved on shore leave and are being given horrible menial tasks to do. This ends up with them getting sent to Sweden to train their special forces over there, which, again, is not what they want to be doing. They want to actually be out working properly. And there is an incident whilst they're out there, obviously, and we'll see where it sort of goes on from there. But still a solid start. There's some fun stuff in that. They're obviously also dealing with the loss of Clay, because Max Sterott couldn't really balance doing 2 shows at once, and he's obviously on Fire Country, and Fire Country is his own show, so he ended up getting killed off last season in this. He was for a little while doing double duty across both, and eventually something had to give, and they were doing a new season of Fire Country, so he was like, no, that's it. He is a bit of a sad loss, but they've brought other characters in to kind of cover that, and it does feel like a final season going into it, but the writing's still strong, the production's still strong, still very, very enjoyable. It's been a really good show, that, I think, for the 7 seasons it's run. I will be sad to see it go, but as long as it goes out well, I'll be happy with that. Over on the BBC side of things, there is a new show called Ludwig, which is a detective dramedy series. It stars David Mitchell. The essential premise for it is you have twin brothers, John Ludwig Taylor and James Taylor. James Taylor is a detective chief inspector in the Cambridge Police, and his brother John is a reclusive puzzle setter. So he designs kind of crosswords and complicated puzzles for magazines and that sort of stuff. And he is very much a recluse, doesn't like leaving the house. In the opening of the first episode, Lucy, who is James's wife, calls John and basically begs him to come over, played by Anna Maxwell Martin. John agrees to go to the house and turns up, and he's then told that James has been missing for the last few days. She's deeply suspicious that something has gone wrong. He was working on a big case and he was acting kind of odd. She then got a letter that said, you need to run. And she's like, I don't know what to do with this. So she enlists John's help, as they are identical twins, to go into the police department and do some investigating, which he's incredibly reluctant to do. But she twists his arm and he eventually goes in and, of course, gets involved immediately in a murder case. It's an interesting one because it's one of those shows that if this was done in America, it would be something like The Mentalist or something like that, where you've got a cocky kind of, I'm great at solving these sort of things person turning up and wanting to help the police. Whereas this is the complete opposite of that. John doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be involved in any of this. And he sort of is being forced to go and do it to try and find out what's happened to his brother. And in the opening episode, ends up involved in this case and solves it almost immediately using his puzzle stuff. It's really, really nicely done. David Mitchell is incredibly watchable. Anna Maxwell-Martin is great as well. It has got a few other faces you might recognize, like Felicity Kendall, Carl Pilkington pops up in there, Paul Chaddy, Rose Ayling-Ellis, Derek Jacobi pops up as a guest appearance. So there are a few sort of guest faces that pop up over the run as well. Really, really quite enjoyed the first episode of that. I think it looks like I'm not sure whether the whole thing is up on iPlayer, but certainly the first few episodes are up on iPlayer right now. Worth going to check Ludwig out. If you like those sort of dramedies, this is really nicely done, very entertaining, good detective series. It's 6 episodes long. They're about an hour each episode, but yeah, really, really quite enjoyable. Worth checking that out. And the other thing I picked up recently, basically because the second season is coming out soon and I'm going to be talking to some of the cast, is The Devil's Hour, which it's described as a thriller series. And I would say it is kind of a sci-fi masquerading as a horror. The vibe of it is very much a horror series, but it isn't. It's not really supernatural. It's really a sci-fi. It's created by Tom Moran, stars Jessica Raine as Lucy Chambers, who is this social worker that suffers with insomnia and wakes up every night at exactly 3:33. She's experiencing some visions, the world changing around her. She has an 8-year-old son who is incredibly withdrawn and emotionless, like just a void, essentially. He doesn't laugh, he doesn't cry, just doesn't seem to be anything there. He communicates, but there's no emotion at all. He is also seeing some visions as well, and her mother appears to have some form of schizophrenia or dementia, and again seems to be seeing some visions, but there is obviously more going on to it than that. The story revolves around mainly sort of Lucy and her relationship with her son and her sort of ex-husband, although they are still sleeping together, but that becomes a whole thing. And Peter Capaldi is in there playing a mysterious criminal who appears to be having the same sort of visions that Lucy is, but he's sort of interpreting them a lot better than she is. So it's this really interesting setup of, is this real? Isn't it real? Is this parallel universe stuff? Is it ghosts? Is there something else going on? But you're not entirely sure exactly what's happening. And it keeps you guessing pretty much throughout the run. It's 6 episodes. They're an hour or so long. They end it in a very interesting place as well. So I'm extremely intrigued to see where they pick up for the second season. I have got a preview of the opening of the second season, which I will be watching later. I haven't watched that yet. But really worth going to pick up if you've not checked that out yet. Devil's Hour, it's on Prime Video, the entire first season. Second season comes out later on this month. Definitely going to be one worth going to go back to. Other people involved, you've got Phil Dunster in there as well, and Nikesh Patel, and Mira Sayal is in there. So interesting cast, interesting bunch of people, very, very well done, and not really comparable to anything else I've seen recently. So definitely definitely worth checking out. Have you watched any of that one?
No, I haven't. I do remember it being pushed at a Comic-Con a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does look quite interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah, so written by, say, Tom Moran, and Stephen Moffat is a producer on it as well. Definitely worth checking out if you've not watched The Devil's Hour. And if you were looking at it thinking it's a horror, it isn't really. It's a sci-fi. It just feels like a horror when you're watching it. It's a very, very interesting one. Worth checking out, but that's on Prime Video as well. And as I say, new season coming fairly soon, and I will be talking to some of the cast. That's all the stuff we've been doing this week. Let's move on to some TV and film news. So we kick off the TV and film news with the renewals, cancellations and pickups. A few cancellations. Unprisoned, cancelled by Hulu and Disney after 2 seasons. It ran on Disney Plus over here. And Black Cake cancelled after 1 season on Hulu and Disney Plus as well. So they've been doing a bit of clearing up. Unprisoned, I think, was Kerry Washington in that series. The bigger one that I think more people might be aware of is Chucky. The TV series has been cancelled after 3 seasons on Sci-Fi and USA Network in the US, and was running on Sky Sci-Fi, I think, over here. That's gone after 3 seasons. They've decided.
I was seeing it on Twitter and stuff when it got cancelled.
Yeah. On the renewal side of things, though, Sherwood has been renewed for a 3rd season, which I don't think comes as a shock to anybody because the reviews of that have been absolutely superb. And Shakespeare and Hathaway, Private Investigators, have been renewed for a 5th season, but it's now going to be a joint production by UK TV's Alibi channel and the BBC. So I think it previously just went out on the BBC, and Alibi have stepped in. So it will now premiere first on Alibi and then air on the BBC for season 5, and presumably beyond that if they renew it for more. But yeah, at least it's back. That is, and it will be airing for free on the BBC. So it just take us slightly longer to get to air, that's all. On to pickups and other news. We have some advanced air dates for you, mainly from Disney, because they released their list of stuff coming in October. Grey's Anatomy Season 21, Part 1 has a premiere date, so 10th of October for that. And 911 Season 8, Part 1 has a premiere date, 17th of October for that. Interestingly, when I mentioned 911, the amount of people that actually asked about Lone Star, which does make you wonder whether they're cancelling the wrong show out of the 2 of them. But I know they're on different networks, but there seems to be a lot more love for Lone Star than there is the main 911 at this point.
Well, the thing is, generally, even when you have a successful show, it's bleeding viewers every year. So Lone Star is what, 4 seasons, something like that? So it's obviously
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's still on the up. Whereas obviously, I think 911 is probably just putting along.
Yes, you do wonder whether 911 maybe has slightly jumped the shark, given that they're promoting the opening episode as having a bee tornado in it.
Having a what, sorry?
A bee tornado, as in Sharknado, but with bees.
Well, that's terrifying.
So, I mean, I can't judge because I've not seen the episode, but that is apparently the opening thing. I mean, they've done some interesting stuff of like flooding, and they had them on a capsized luxury liner last season, but bee tornado is a choice. I don't know how well they managed to pull it off, but we'll see. If you're wondering about Lone Star, my guess is because they've said that this is season 8 part 1, they will drop season 8 part 1, run that out weekly, and then in the break between part 1 and part 2 of season 8, 911, they will drop Lone Star and run that, and then bring 911 back for season 8 part 2. That's how they've run it before, so I think Lone Star is going to be a few weeks off yet. Well, I'm not sure how many episodes there are in season 8 of 911, but that's how I think they will probably end up running it. So Lone Star will turn up. It's just taking a little bit longer to get back. Sticking with Disney Plus as well, 24th of October, Dr. Odyssey launches on the streaming service. It's a new Ryan Murphy show described as a high-octane procedural. Stars Joshua Jackson as Max, the new onboard doctor of a luxury cruise ship where the staff work hard and play harder. It's all hands on deck as Max and his small but mighty medical team investigate unique medical crisis and each other miles from shore. So it's basically a medical drama set on a cruise ship. It's another one from Ryan Murphy. He's pretty much had hits with everything he's made so far. So I suspect this will be fine. I will probably watch it, as a medical procedural. At least it's something slightly out of the the ordinary, I think, for that. So,
I've seen the trailer. It's also got Don Johnson in it.
Yes, it has.
And one of the original doctors from starring Freddie Highmore. What is that medical show?
The Good Doctor.
Yeah, it has a male doctor who was part of his team at the beginning, but then left. He's in there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, the trailer looks good. It's an interesting idea, though. I don't know how Big Cruise thinks about having a show talking about horrible things happening on cruise liners weekly.
Yes.
I'm not sure how that's going to affect their numbers, but we'll have to see.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we'll see. I'm not sure. Yeah.
If it's just a medical drama, it's a hospital, so things happen. But when it's on a cruise ship, that shifts things.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you do wonder how long they can go on before that gets like, what else can we put these people on a cruise ship through? So I don't know. We'll see. But yes.
It kind of reminds me of that story about that cruise ship that's like stuck like in Belfast for repairs before you can get underway for a while thing, and two people fell in love with it. So, good and bad altogether.
Yes, yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, Dr. Odyssey, that's landing 24th of October on Disney+. That one will be coming. Other Disney Plus stuff as well, but dates way off in the future. We've got Dream Productions, which we talked about before, which is this spin-off from Inside Out. It's from Pixar. It's coming 11th of December, they've said, with all 4 episodes. There's only 4 episodes, but they're all dropping at once. Takes place between the events of Inside Out and Inside Out 2. Dream Productions is a series about the studio inside Riley's mind where dreams really do come true. Every night, on time and on budget. Riley is growing up, and when her memories need some extra processing, joy and the rest of the core emotions send them to Dream Productions. Acclaimed director Paula Persimmon, voiced by Paula Pell, faces a nightmare of her own, trying to create the next hit dream after being paired up with Zinni, who's voiced by Richard Ayoade, a smug daydream director looking to step into the big lanes of night dreams. So Inside Out has both the first and the second one are outstanding movies. This is from the same people. Richard Ayoade in there as well. I don't know Paula Pell, but Richard Ayoade is fantastic. I'm really, really interested to see this. I just think it's going to be fantastic. So 11th of December, that's landing on Disney+. The other Pixar show is called Win or Lose. That's an 8-episode series dropping weekly from the 19th of February 2025. It reveals what it actually feels like to be in the shoes of 8 different characters in the week leading up to a big baseball game. The insecure kids, the helicopter parents, even the lovesick umpire, with an incredibly funny, very emotional and unique animated perspectives. So the idea of that show is it's basically, I think it's the same time period that you're following, but you're following a different character and a slightly different animation style with each episode is the idea for that. But it's called Win or Lose, that one. Again, it's another Pixar one. Pixar really are masters at this sort of stuff. But 19th of February for that one. So you can go and check that out. Moving on to some other news stories, though. There's a bit of industry news which popped up, which you may or may not have spotted, but I thought we should probably talk about it. Sky are suing Warner Brothers Discovery over various programming things, including Harry Potter. So basically what happened was Sky Group last Friday filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers, accusing the studio of breaching their agreement by refusing to partner on the upcoming Harry Potter series and a number of other shows as well. Sky has long distributed Warner Brothers content in the UK as part of their HBO deal, which, brings a bunch of HBO shows to Sky Atlantic. But it's fair to say the relationship has started to deteriorate somewhat because Warner Brothers are preparing to launch the Max streaming service, which they have in the US. They're preparing to launch that across Europe in 2025 and in the UK in 2026. So there's that going on kind of in the background. And the basis of the lawsuit is basically that Warner's, as part of the contract that they signed in 2021, are obligated to offer 4 Max series per year to be co-financed and co-produced by Sky and distributed exclusively by Sky in the UK and Europe. Sky says that Warner Brothers have failed to live up to that deal since it began in 2021, saying they undisputably fell far short of of that 4-series mark, in certain years barely offering a single qualifying series, was also withholding critical contractually required information necessary for Sky to evaluate any potential option that they did receive. The agreement currently with Sky for those HBO shows is due to expire at the end of next year, 2025. And as I said, Max has begun to roll out in Europe and is due to launch in 2026 in the UK. So basically, Sky is accusing WB of withholding the programming, so Sky will not have it once Max launches. The exact wording of it is basically each calendar year from 2021 through to 2025, Sky shall be presented with all qualifying HBO Max original series, no less than 4 in any event, that are 1 hour in length of duration per episode, intended to be multi-season and produced by WB TV or HBO Max for premiere on HBO Max. Sky will then select a minimum of 2 series per year. So they agreed basically to co-finance 2 series out of the 4 that WB are obligated to present, and WB haven't been doing that. Warner's reason for refusing to honour its obligations to Sky couldn't be more clear. The lawsuit states Warner has chosen to keep the Harry Potter series for itself and make the blockbuster series a cornerstone of its own Max rollout in Europe. So it was the Harry Potter series, I think, that really brought it to a head, because what happened with that was the series was publicly announced in April 2023, but a month later, when the Sky executives asked why they hadn't been offered it by Warner Brothers under that partnership agreement, Warner Brothers executive says, oh, well, it's not actually been greenlit and it may never be, therefore it's not subject to the Sky co-financing arrangement, despite the fact that WB's own press releases had said that it had been greenlit. So they then continued to put out press releases over the last year about casting and additions to the creative team and who's going to be making it. So clearly it is being greenlit and been moving forward. Warner Brothers' response to all this is trying to say that it's a baseless attempt by Sky and Comcast to try and gain leverage for talks to retain the WB programming after this deal ends in 2025. Then very snarkily, and we know HBO branded shows are critical to Sky, as evidenced by their desire over the past year to find ways to renew our agreements, and this lawsuit makes it clear that Sky is deeply concerned about the viability of its business were it to lose our award-winning content. WBD will rigorously defend itself from this unfounded lawsuit as we move forward undeterred with plans to launch Max, including the new HBO Harry Potter series in the UK and other European territories in 2026. So, yeah, they're basically saying that, oh, well, it's just them trying to get leverage. And I would say, looking at the wording of it, it seems if they haven't been offering the programming up, it's pretty cut and dry that they're in breach of their contract. But, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a contractual lawyer. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I wouldn't want to litigate this in public. I'm sure it's going to be fun once the thing starts. But realistically, I think it probably will go to trial. They'll settle. And Sky will probably find itself with a couple of things that it's reasonably happy with, maybe some money. It's not worth having like an actual open case going in 2025. They're launching in Europe. You don't need everyone and their brother mentioning that on all coverage of whatever they'll call it when it launches in Europe. Oh, they're also currently fighting a thing in the UK. It's just not worth it. I don't see Sky getting a hold of that Harry Potter thing, though.
No, I tend to agree with you on that. I think they will defend it with their lives, I suspect, of losing that Harry Potter thing or the rights to it in UK and Europe. I don't see that happening. But there has been a number of bits of sleight of hand by Warner Brothers. I mean, things like the Lantern series, which was a Max show and then got booted over onto HBO. Seemingly, it would appear to avoid it falling under this deal. And that there seems to have been a few bits and like jiggery pokery, shall we say, of stuff with Warner Brothers doing things like that to try and sort of hiding assets to stop them being part of this Sky deal. And it feels to me like Warner Brothers are trying to run out the clock. and we're hoping to get away with this until the deal ends at the end of next year. And Sky have got sick of it and have basically said, no, we need to sort this out. Judging by the wording of it, it would seem to me that Warner Brothers are in breach of contract. As I say, I'm not a contract lawyer. I couldn't say that for a fact. But from the stuff that is written directly in the contract, if they haven't been offering up shows to Sky, which they are contractually obligated to do, that would seem like it's a breach of the contract. I mean, pretty straight cut and dry, you would think, with that. But there does seem that there has been some stuff going on behind the scenes with the moving shows around. As for what this means moving forward, we don't know. We knew that this was coming in terms of HBO content being removed off Sky. We knew that was going to happen because they'd made a lot of noise at Warner Brothers about the fact that they were going to launch Max in Europe and the UK. So we knew that that was going to happen. And Sky knew that was going to happen, although they had previously said that that content will be available on the Sky platform in one shape or another. And, whether that's just the Max app being available on the platform, like the Netflix app is, or whether it's something a bit more integrated, who knows? But yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll have to see how this all plays out. I mean, it's not like this stuff is going to be taken off immediately. It can't really affect anything like that. So there's nothing particularly to worry about. But it does seem like Sky are definitely going to lose all that content at the end of 2025. But they were always going to do that because WB were not going to renew that contract. It's just a case of what happens now. And like you say, whether it goes actually into court and they fight it or whether they come to some agreement over stuff. So we'll have to wait and see. But yes, it's an interesting one, I think. Definitely a soured relationship there, I think. Moving across onto another streaming service, MGM Plus, they have ordered a new Robin Hood series from John Glenn and Jonathan English. So John Glenn is the showrunner on the aforementioned SEAL team. And Jonathan English has worked on things like The Ark, which we also mentioned earlier, and Librarian, so he's part of sort of Dean Devlin's stable. They've described it as a smart, sweeping romantic adventure which brings a modern energy to the classic story while keeping historical authenticity. So it's not moving it to the modern day or anything weird like that. It is going to be standard Robin Hood, but very much focusing on the relationship between Robin and Marion. Following the Norman invasion of England, Rob, a Saxon forester's son, and Marion, the daughter of a Norman lord, fall in love and work together to fight for justice and freedom. Rob rises as the leader of a band of rebel outlaws. Marion infiltrates the power at court as both work together to thwart royal corruption and bring peace to the land. Glenn and English both serve as writers and exec producers. They've ordered a 10-episode season. I think this sounds like it could be kind of interesting. It sort of sounds like they're going maybe down a sort of outlandery type route of that kind of historical setting, love story type of stuff. I mean, without the sci-fi weirdness that Outlander has, but I'm thinking from a sort of vibe point of view, it might be that kind of historical show. But yeah, I think this could be kind of interesting. Say, I like SEAL Team and John Glenn did a good job show running that, so we'll have to see with this.
Well, interesting. Can be filmed in Serbia, probably same studios that deal with the Ark. So the casting will be interesting. I do like the casting on the Ark, so definitely make sure it's European actors. I still need to know. See, I think it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a Robin Hood TV show. There was the BBC did one for a little bit, didn't they? And I think, we've had the films, and it occasionally pops up.
There's a Gender Bed Modern over Canada. Forget if it was the CBC or someone else.
Oh yeah, I think this sounds like it could be kind of interesting. It will be on MGM Plus globally as well. They've also said MGM Plus being a streaming channel on Prime Video, so it's one of those things you've got to pay extra for, but it's where all the Power series are and some of the other stuff as well, and Outlander and that sort of stuff as well. So I think that sounds like it could be quite an interesting one. Don't know exactly when that's going to land, but production starts in February, so presumably towards the end of next year before that turns up. Speaking of gender switch stuff, though, there is a female-led Zorro adaptation in the works at CBS. And if you're thinking, haven't we talked about this before? Yes, we have, twice. This is the third time they're trying this. Kind of some of the same people behind it, although not all the same people. So it was tried at NBC. and then tried at CW, and now they're trying it at CBS. It's got a slightly different creative team behind it. It's got John Halvlin, who worked on The Shield and The Man Who Fell to Earth, joining Rebecca Rodriguez, who worked on Snowpiercer and Doom Patrol, who will co-write this version. Rebecca's been on since the very first iteration, so John's the new writer on that. It's a modern retelling of Zorro, with a young Latin ex-woman learns that her father passed away and was the legendary hero Zorro. Embracing his masked identity, she steps in to protect her Austin, Texas community from the wealthy elites trying to exploit them. I mean, I don't know.
Let's be perfectly honest, that sounds bonkers.
Yeah, I mean...
In modern, that sounds bonkers. But you never know. They can put it out. But the idea, if you tried to sell me it, I would be hesitant to invest in that. Just because the modern thing is a thing that makes me worry.
Yeah, I don't really see a sort of masked, sword-wielding vigilante running around Austin, Texas.
Yeah, especially Austin, Texas. I mean, my God, you're just going to catch a buckshot in the very first episode.
Yeah, it's an odd one, I think. As I say, there has been 2 other versions of it with slightly different variations of that sort of story, but still set in modern day. What is weird is there are 2 versions in the works of a more traditional Zorro as well. There's one out at the moment, which is on Paramount Plus in some territories, which is a French series, which is a straight-up traditional Zorro series. And Wilma Van Marama is developing another American, more traditional, or American sort of Mexican, more traditional take on Zorro, with, I think, him playing the lead for Disney Plus. And that is in development as well. So there's like a French version, which is a traditional version. There is this new Disney Plus version, which is a traditional version. And then you've got this sort of female-led version that is being developed at CBS. I mean, I guess Sherlock was still around when Elementary was on air. So, I mean, these things can coexist with the same characters in slightly different versions. But yeah, it's kind of weird how suddenly there's a whole bunch of Zorro stuff popped up out of nowhere. But yeah, we'll see whether it actually goes anywhere or not. As I say, 3rd time they're trying this at a completely different network. Who knows? But yes, it is in development, if that floats your boat and you think that's going to be an interesting one. So that's all the news we've got for this week. Just some highlights for next week on TV next. So, highlights for next week on TV. We have CSI Vegas returning its 3rd and sadly final season on Alibi, 2nd of October at 9 p.m. That lands. Legends of Vox Machina returns for a 2nd season. That's on Prime Video. That's on the 3rd of October. The Ark, as we were talking about earlier, that lands for its 2nd season on Sky Sci-Fi on the 3rd of October. That's at 9 p.m. Heartstopper returns for its 3rd season. That's on Netflix on the 3rd of October as well. The Cleaner is back for its 3rd season. That's on the 4th of October. That's at 9:30. That's the Greg Davies comedy. Have I Got News for You returns for its 68th season. That's on the 4th of October at 9 p.m. on BBC One. And then over on Sky Max on the 4th of October, Darryl Dixon, The Book of Carol, the next iteration of the Walking Dead series, that starts season 2. That's on Sky Max at 9 p.m. on the 4th of October. Show Trial returns for its 2nd season. That's on BBC One. That's on the 6th of October at 9 p.m. That's the anthology series sort of based around legal drama. Alma's Not Normal returns for its 2nd season. That's on the 7th of October on BBC 2 at 10 p.m. and that's back. And Bump, the Australian comedy drama, that returns to BBC iPlayer. That's on the 7th of October for its 4th season. So you can go and check that out there. So that's some good stuff. We're getting lots of TV coming back. I might check out Show Trial, Darryl Dixon, Have I Got News for You, The Ark, I will definitely watching. And I really like that iteration of CSI. It's a shame they've decided to can it. But so there's some good stuff dropping this week.
Definitely The Ark, I think. That's something I'm looking forward to. I might try watching the 1st season of Legend of Vox Machina.
Yes, I kind of should go and check that out, given, you know, its critical role. And they were excellent when we saw them at Comic-Con. So kind of interested to go and see that. I just didn't pick it up when the 1st season came around. So yes, so some good stuff dropping this week. If people want to find more of your stuff, where can they find you?
So they can head over to hollywoodnorthnews.net, take a look and see what's happening in Canada. Obviously, we're all rolling up to the new TV season. We've got lots of previews of things. We've got ongoing reviews of Murder in a Small Town. I'm sure that'll be headed over here relatively soon, starring Smallville's Christian Crook.
Yes.
Also got some film reviews from the recent spate of film festivals that we had over summer, including Seeds, which is an Indigenous horror. So you can check out our review of that. That's pretty much about it. You can always head over to my Twitter and say hello, which is Almasy It's ALMASYKINNEAS.
Cool. So go and check Darryl out over there, and lots more stuff on hollywoodnorthnews.net. For Matt, you can find him at entertainmenttalk.org for lots and lots more podcasts over there as well. For us, you can go to the website at geektown.co.uk throughout the week and see all the latest air date information. If you want to get in touch with your questions or comments, email us on podcast@geektown.co.uk. Leave a message on the website post. Find us at Geektown on Twitter, on Facebook at facebook.com/Geektown, YouTube at youtube.com/Geektown, Blue Sky at Geektown, Instagram at Geektown UK, TikTok at Geektown UK, and Threads at Geektown UK. That is everything. We shall see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.